Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Start with the land acknowledgement. The Durham District School Board acknowledges that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships, both historic and modern, with the territories upon which our school board and schools are located. Today, this area is home to many Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. We acknowledge that the Durham region forms a part of the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, the Mississauga peoples, and the treaty territories and the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation. It is on these ancestral and treaty lands that we teach, learn, and live. Do we have any declarations of interest? Seeing none, could I get a motion to approve the agenda? Donna, thank you. Or Trustee Edwards. I see no community presentations, which brings us to the Durham District School Board presentations. 6A, Upholding Indigenous Rights in the Durham District School Board Schools, presented by Erin Elmhurst. Oh. Is she not here? There she is. She's online. Okay.
We've called upon Superintendent Elmhurst. Does she need to be unmuted, or can she do it herself?
Good evening. Are you ready for us now?
Looks like one of our presenters can't get in.
So Superintendent Elmhurst, are you okay to begin? Not quite clear yet.
I'm just having some technical difficulties, sorry.
Am I correct that we are ready to begin with the Indigenous education presentation? Can you give me a thumbs up if we're in the right, moving forward at this time? Yes. We are.
All right, have we moved? I don't know if we've moved into committee of the whole yet.
I got a text message that we're good to start.
We can hear you, Erin.
I don't know if they can hear us.
We can hear you.
Has anybody else heard something that I haven't heard in this space?
Nothing. I've heard nothing from the boardroom, including calling the meeting to order.
Yeah. Okay. Because I was getting text that I could start.
So Robert, maybe we just mute them because they don't know they can be heard.
I'm glad I didn't.
No problem.
Yes, I'll call them and see what's happening.
One.
Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. The land acknowledgement first. The Durham District School Board acknowledges that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships, both historic and modern, with the territories upon which our school board and schools are located. Today, this area is home to many Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. We acknowledge that the Durham region forms a part of the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation. The Mississauga peoples and the treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation. It is on these ancestral and treaty lands that we teach, learn, and live. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, could I get a motion to approve the agenda? 1 second. Nikki Lundquist.
I would actually like to make a motion to amend the agenda to include a notice of motion on violent incidents in schools.
Sorry, could you repeat that again so I could try and write it down?
Sure. I would like to amend the agenda to include a notice of motion on violent incidents in schools.
I will put that in as item 9E.
Thank you.
Could I get a motion to approve the amended agenda? Nikki Lundquist, second by Darlene. I see no community presentations, so we'll move on to the Durham District School Board presentations, upholding Indigenous rights in the Durham District School Board schools. Superintendent Erin Elmhurst.
Good evening, and through you, Chair Templeton. The report can be found on pages 1 to 5 of your package this evening. The purpose of this report is to provide the Board of Trustees with information on the Durham District School Board's ongoing commitment to upholding Indigenous rights and the system-wide recognition of Orange Shirt Day and the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. Since 2013, Orange Shirt Day has been recognized as a day for schools and communities to commemorate residential school and Indian Day school survivors and engage in age-appropriate learning about the legacies of the residential school system. As of June 2021, September 30th has also been recognized by the federal government as the annual day for National Truth and Reconciliation. While it is important that we recognize this day, the learning and ongoing actions to remove systemic barriers experienced by Indigenous students and families must be ongoing and consistent. Curriculum content inclusive of Indigenous knowledge systems, worldviews, truth, histories, and contributions must also be paired with student-centered pedagogical approaches that prioritize the rights of students. Within tonight's presentation, we will hear from school administration at the Dossagay Mandamin Public School, Paul Haynes and Philippe Coutu, and they will share how the school has engaged in rich learning that honors the legacy of its namesake and upholds Indigenous rights. We will also hear from system lead Denise Nickerson, an elementary Indigenous education facilitator, and how Orange Shirt Day has been supported and recognized throughout the DDSB. At the conclusion of this evening's presentation, we would be more than happy to answer any questions. At this time, I'll start the slideshow and invite Denise Nickerson to begin our presentation.
Thank you, Superintendent Elmhurst. My name is Denise Nickerson, and we would like to begin this evening's presentation by sharing a video of Regina Mandavin, daughter of Josephine Mandavin, at the family and community-led renaming ceremony on August 26th. Josephine was a residential school survivor, water advocate, elder, and is the namesake of Dossagay Mandavin Public School. Within this video, Regina shares her mother's wishes for all schools as a guide for Dossagay Mandavin Public School. This direction aligns with our system focus on re-imaging teaching and learning and prioritizing Indigenous rights and human rights.
And what that might mean, I think because of my mom's experience with residential school, I think there are things here at this school we have an opportunity to provide for someone who's that inner.
Oops, sorry. I apologize. There you go.
And what that might mean, I think because of my mom's experience with residential school, I think there are things here at this school we have an opportunity to provide for someone who's that inner child, what they never had. And she valued individuality, to bring your whole self to school and not to have to hide things about yourself. She was, basically told to leave everything behind. And so we're hoping through this school, Bidasket and Public School, that kids can be themselves and they have language, they have teachings, they have gifts to share, that it should be supported. And with that, a supportive culture where students and teachers and administrators, everyone helps each other. There's a supportive culture there, no one's left behind. Like on the walks, make sure no one's left behind. And also just that she valued intellectual curiosity, ask questions, ask the why, be inquisitive. Why do we have to do this? And you're showing kids with critical thinking skills.
Throughout the month of September, all schools in the DDSB have focused on welcoming students back into vibrant learning communities where the rights of all students are upheld. At this time, I would like to invite the administration of Bidasket Mandaban Public School.
Good evening. My name is Paul Haynes and I'm the proud principal of Bidasket Mandaban Public School. With me tonight is Vice Principal Philippe Coutu, and we have been collaborating as a staff with the Indigenous Education Department, led by Rachel Cosford, over the last year. This evening, we will be sharing how our school community has engaged in important learning as we work to honor the legacy of Bidasket Mandaban. Now I'll turn it over to Rachel Cosford.
During this month, student learning centered around advocating for Indigenous rights. For the culminating activity, educators and students participated in Have a Heart Day, a child and youth-led reconciliation event through the First Nation Child and Family Caring Society, where students learned about equal education for all. All students engaged in the creation of a heart garden where they planted their dreams. This land-based learning initiative has since taken place at several DDSB schools during the week leading up to Orange Shirt Day, as students honored and remembered survivors while placing their own dreams in the garden.
In an effort to honor Bidasket Mandaban's commitment to water and learn more about her strength, courage, and advocacy, all classes received copies of The Water Walker written by Joanne Robertson in English or French. Hearing the words of Regina and the importance of intellectual curiosity, educators read the books with students who reflected on what they wanted to learn more about by preparing questions to ask the author. On September 16th, Joanne Robertson, a friend of Bidasket and author of the Water Walker book, spent time virtually with staff and students, shared more about Bidasket's work, and answered the questions students had, including, how many shoes did she go through and what did they eat? Joanne spoke of how Bidasket would always stress the walks were not about her, but rather about the importance of respecting water and the environment. This was an important lesson staff and students took with them from the presentation that will guide further learning and action at Bidasket Mandaban Public School. Now I'll turn it over to Vice Principal Coutu.
In the spring, all staff had the opportunity to support water protection through a cross-curricular approach. This was an excellent segue to the author's visit, as the whole school is familiar with both the book and resources. The continued vision is for teachers to embed learning throughout all aspects of the curriculum. As a school, we've purchased the Take Action for Reconciliation series to support students and staff alike learn more about Indigenous histories, truths, and contributions. Most recently, educators came together for a dedicated learning opportunity to explore the Take Action for Reconciliation resource. The focus of this collaboration was to build foundational knowledge and provide staff with co-planning time to continue the implementation of meaningful learning opportunities that feature Bidasket and water advocacy.
As we continue our learning with a focus on upholding Indigenous rights and human rights, we are reminded of the words of a residential school survivor, Shirley Williams, who told us, "We were told you will never amount to anything if you keep your language and culture." What we teach our students today at Badalsagay Mandamin is the opposite. You need to be true to yourself and your culture and who you are as a person to be successful. We will continue to honor the work of Badalsagay and uphold Indigenous rights by providing opportunities for students to learn how to take care of and respect the land, air, and water, provide learning spaces that allow students to bring their whole self to school, treating students with dignity and respect, promoting intellectual curiosity, and focusing on student-centered pedagogical approaches. Now I'll turn it over to Rachel Cosford.
The Indigenous Education Department created and shared age-appropriate Orange Shirt Day resources with the specific aim to align with the Indigenous education policy and classroom practices, teaching and learning procedure, as well as the human rights policy and procedures. The Indigenous Education Department continues to support the integration of student-centered pedagogical practices in all professional development and resource creations. Indigenous education coaches have been collaborating with teachers to include the resources that were sent out by the Indigenous Education Department for Orange Shirt Day. These activities included the opportunities for getting outside. The student engagement coach has also begun supporting student circles with the same goal, to get students learning on the land.
School communities focused on welcoming students back to classrooms that support connectedness and ensure all students know they matter and belong. A key area of focus is student determination. Students are able to engage in classroom environments that are free from discrimination and have a voice and choice in their educational experiences. Throughout the week leading up to Orange Shirt Day and on Orange Shirt Day, we saw older students and younger students engaging in learning together and reading texts by Indigenous authors with a focus on relationship building and co-learning. We saw evidence of community building, kindness and love with a focus on ensuring all students matter and belong. Schools engaged in inquiry-based learning about the land acknowledgement, water, the calls to action, and explored self-selected texts. All DDSB employees have a responsibility to engage in ongoing learning and understanding the rights of Indigenous peoples and the deep impacts of colonization. On National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, employees were asked to engage in personal and professional learning. Bernard Nelson, a residential school survivor, spent time with central staff while they learned about residential school experience and ongoing impacts. Resources were shared with all DDSB employees, and they were encouraged and supported to take time out of their day on National Truth and Reconciliation to engage in learning. Thank you for your time tonight. We are happy to take any questions.
All right, Darlene, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Thompson. I love the story of the water walker. And, you know, Nokomis, grandmother, went through 3 knees and 11 pairs of sneakers walking for Nebe, so walking for water. And 3 knees, that's remarkable. And thank you for honoring, you know, her memory and continuing this, you know, this legacy. And I really am appreciative. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Forbes. I Not seeing any other questions, I would like to thank Aaron, Denise, Paul, and Rachel for this beautiful presentation. Thank you. Moving on to the next presentation, the Specialist High Skills Major, Promotion of Intermediate Students with Superintendent Steve Nevels.
Good evening. We are excited to share with you a short presentation related to the report on page 6 of tonight's package on the Specialist High Skills Major Intermediate Promotion Initiative that was undertaken during the last school year. I am happy to introduce Annalise Burke, OYAP and Co-op Facilitator, Jillian Broadley, SHSM Technology and School College Work Initiative Facilitator, Rich Bishop, Community Connected Experiential Learning Facilitator, and Monique Mueller, our Student Success Lead, who will tell you about the initiative.
Good evening. My name is Jillian Broadley, and I am the facilitator for tech, SHSM programs, and school college work initiatives. The Ministry of Labour estimates that 1 in 5 jobs in Ontario will be in the skilled trades by 2025. Job skills programs such as the Specialist High Skills Major expose students to these opportunities to build their knowledge and skills and explore potential career pathways. The program consists of specific bundles of credits, certifications, experiential learning opportunity, each specific to the sector. The Student Success Department is focusing our promotion efforts to intermediate grades to increase awareness of the program and to open up pathway opportunities. I'd like to pass it over to my colleague, Richard.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Richard Bishop, and I am the Community Connected Experiential Learning Facilitator for the DDSB. This program aligns with the 6 strategic priorities of the DDSB, and the promotional initiatives have been founded on creating equitable opportunities and outcomes for students by identifying barriers that may have prevented students who are marginalized and traditionally underserved and creating opportunities for them. We have aimed to create engaging, interactive, and innovative resources that highlight student experience and student voice. I'd like to pass it back to Jill.
The promotion consists of the development of promotional brochures, promotional videos, and interactive kits. Promotional brochures are created for each sector that outline not only the benefits of the program, but the specific required components for each. I'd like to pass it over to my colleague, Anna.
Good evening. My name is Anna Bork, and I'm the OYAP Co-op Facilitator. I'd like to present to you the first overview video of SHSM programs. There are 12 additional SHSM videos. All are featured on the DDSB YouTube channel with closed captioning. Our promotional videos were all filmed in DDSB schools to highlight learning spaces and programs. The student's voice was featured, and they share their personal experiences with SHSM. The video will not play music tonight well across technology, so please enjoy it, and feel free to contact Student Success Department if you'd like to watch the links at another time.
The Specialist High Skills Major program basically gives students a chance to major in something in high school. But instead of majoring in a subject like math or history, students major in a career field.
It teaches you not only the skills, but sort of some opportunities, possible job path.
It doesn't matter what students plan to do after high school. Apprenticeship, college, university, workplace, the SHSM program is open to anyone in grade 11 or 12. There are unique programs in each and every Durham District secondary school that put students on a journey towards success by giving them the chance to test drive a career.
Using what I've learned from this program in my professional career path, it's helped me so much.
Students get to take relevant courses and go on field trips to get a behind-the-scenes look at their career options. Participate in awesome workshops and get industry standard certifications. There's a ton of value, and it's free.
So I got my customer service certification, CPR. I have my working from heights training, infection control,
ladder safety,
fire safety,
first aid training. I feel like it's helping me stand out from everyone else.
It was sort of built for students who wanted to learn by doing.
I think the program will help me make connections because we've worked with some of those industry professionals.
It's an incredible experience.
In fact, every student gets the opportunity to take co-op. And lots of people say that's the best part because it's real experience. Maybe they like the field, maybe they decide it's not for them. Either way, they come out ahead with more skills and a better idea of their direction.
Before high school, I knew nothing about electrical.
The opportunity for OEAP and apprenticeships, it really made me feel good, and it was something that really challenged me and helped me grow. And overall, it's just like a great experience. I loved it.
Educators, employers, and parents love it because it's inclusive education at its best.
It's really about the training skills, the speakers that we bring in.
Everything from academic skills to hands-on tasks, we support all our students, and we're proud to do it.
It gives students skills, scholarship opportunities, and real-world experience.
The biggest draw was actually just the idea that you get a little stamp on your diploma, because I know a lot of companies are going to be looking for that.
There's a lot of scholarship opportunities. I've definitely got out of my comfort zone and gained more confidence as well.
But frankly, students love it because it's fun.
I didn't even know that my life can be this complete with skills like these.
It feels relevant.
This is why I think high school kids and kids all around Durham should be going into this.
It's exactly what school should be like.
Right now, I'm loving it.
So to go along with the videos, we created 24 kits to fit all subject areas for the SHSM. Each kit is interactive and is used to engage students with application-based activities. These kits provide 30-minute experiences for students to highlight these key skills and knowledge that they would gain from the sector programs. Teachers are provided with step-by-step instructions, safety materials, and manuals. Tutorial videos are included for more challenging tasks. We're still in the early ages of implementation of this program. To date, we've presented videos and kits to all DDSB at-home French immersion students where they had the options to review 3 sector videos followed by kit activities that they completed at home. Feedback has been positive and the students were inspired and excited about the videos. In both elementary presentations, they requested to watch more and do the activities the next day. They really loved to see what was happening in our high schools. We have had excellent feedback from teachers and parents that participated virtually as well. Here are some examples of the student feedback that was collected on Pear Deck. You can see the picture of the dragon eye, which was representative of the art SHSM. The lots of options refers to cars and auto hairstyling. The leaf was the environment, and the computers were referring to our information communications technology program. You can see one student drew a $sign. They were really interested in the business course and wanting to learn how to make more money. Henry Street grade 9 and 10 students tested the kits in rotation. In these images, they were working on wiring a light bulb and building a race car. They were curious of how they could edit the activities to perform better, more advanced thinking. For example, extra parts were provided when building a car, and the students attempted to use them to weigh it down on a slippery floor so it could have more grip and perform faster. I'll give it back to you, Rich.
So to go along with this program, we have a comprehensive promotional program. The CMS counselors are going to utilize the SHSM kits and videos during their visits with elementary schools to highlight the programs in their pathway planning conversations. Secondary guidance teams will be able to utilize the promotional material and video for parent and students during their pathway and course selection conversations and grade 8 nights. Parent information nights at various family of schools to share pathway and career opportunities provided by the SHSM program and skilled trades. And intentional efforts will be made to continue to bring equitable outcomes for all of our students, to continue to reach underrepresented groups like females in male-dominated fields, and to provide experiential learning opportunities to students who are traditionally marginalized and underserved. We will be monitoring this initiative and evidence of its impact through student, parent, and teacher feedback, along with SHSM and skilled trade enrollment data, successful completion rates of the programs, as well as sectors offered. At this time, we would like to thank you for inviting us tonight and for listening to our presentation on the SHSM and skilled trade promotion kits. If there are any questions, please direct them to us.
My apologies for a little bit of the glitch with the video tonight, but I'm glad the closed captioning was on and we got most of the language. Happy to take any questions through you, Chair.
Trustee Edwards?
Thank you. Thank you for that presentation, and it's great to see some of the information that is now being shared about the specialist high school major programs. You did mention that that the videos were available on YouTube. Are they open for parents to watch as well, or is for further information, or like at least the beginning one, if wish to introduce parents to specialist high school majors?
I can answer that question for you. So the videos are available. You would have to have the YouTube link to go to it, and I'm more than willing to share that with you. If you'd like to email us at the Student Success Department, we can get that to you.
We are currently exploring different methods for promoting the different links. So right now we are working with the communication department so that we can get that information out to parents. However, they do need the link. So we will be providing that to all the families with our promotional material as we're visiting the schools.
And a secondary question is around, I know this is promotion for our grade 7, 8s and students and so forth, but I know that but the special high school majors don't happen until grade 11 and 12. I'm just wondering, is any of this information sort of promoted during the careers course for additional information for some of our students?
I could speak to that question as well. So we also use My Blueprint in all of our schools, and OYAP and SHSM is promoted through My Blueprint. When our CMS counselors are going out for 7 and 8, obviously they would touch on that, but our guidance, our co-op, and our tech teachers are aware of these videos and the availability of the kits for them to be brought into the school. So we hope to reach as many students as possible. I hope that answers your question.
I'm going to move to student trustee Ben Cameron and then Linda Lowry.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. It's my understanding that the SHSM program is contingent on like a teacher stepping up and running the program. Is that correct?
That is correct information. So I'm a previous SHSM teacher myself. I have experience in the classroom. It's a great experience, and a lot of our excellent teachers like to stand up and have that role for their students.
Thank you. And just to add to that too, the SHSMs that we have in each of our high schools, for the most part, have been running for a while. Because of the specialist nature of it, we oftentimes have teachers with a special skill set for teaching those programs and promoting those programs. But it's not always dependent on a teacher stepping up, right? Sometimes we'll replace if a teacher has retired or teacher's moved on to a different school to ensure that those programs continue to run.
Trustee Linda Lowry.
Thank you, Chair. This is incredibly exciting, and I'm so very, very impressed with what's happening. This is learning at its best. I have a question, though. You mentioned intentional efforts to reach underrepresented groups, so say profile and say women where they're not typically in that kind of field. What about accommodations for people who have unique challenges? I'm thinking, physical, mental, emotional challenges. Do they fit into this program? And if so, how are they accommodated?
I can answer the question as well. So any student that wants to be part of an SHSM program would take the required components to be part of it. So let's say cooperative education, or making sure that they're getting these unique certifications. And within that, their teachers would support them along the way, because they would maybe have an IEP or something to support them. And we're aware of our students' needs and what they need to be entering these types of programs and finding their unique skills and what inspires them. And SHSM really helps them do that.
Thank you. Like I say, really exciting. Wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Seeing no more questions, I'd like to thank Superintendent Steve Nellis and Annalise, Jillian, and Richard for their presentation. Thank you. Moving on to the director's update, Director Nora Marsh.
Thank you, Chair, and no update this evening. I think the most pressing one will come forward in a report later on from Superintendent Mundy in terms of school growth.
Thank you. I see no recommended actions. So we'll move on to our information items. And the first one on board is student trustee reports with students trustees Ben Cameron, Lauren Edwards, and Gwen, I'm going to try this, Kite. Is that close? And first speaking is Lauren.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, we are delighted to present our October Student Trustee Report. Throughout September, we've been working hard to plan and organize our first Student Senate meeting, which will take place on October 19th. We have a packed 3 hours planned with presentations from guest speakers, breakout sessions, and games to allow for all of our senators to meet each other and plan for the 2022-23 school year. We are looking forward to meeting our new senators. This concludes our report, and we would love to answer any questions. Thank you.
Seeing no questions, thank you for your update and report. It's appreciated, and thank you for your hard work. Moving forward with the senior team, the annual operational plan 2021-22, end of year update.
Thank you. Given that trustees are moving into a governance meeting at 8 p.m., the senior team thought it might be wise for me just to give a brief overview, but then we're more than happy to take any questions that trustees may have about the report found on folios 9 to 53. This does summarize the major initiatives of the senior team and all staff throughout the district over the course of the last academic year. At its heart, I think it's fair to say that the operational plan was grounded in the pillars of the strategic plan, Ignite Learning, but also had the sense of that students who experience a sense of belonging, a sense of inclusion and security, and see their identities represented and reflected in their learning will most likely be able to engage in the joy of learning and experience excellence in academics. And so the work of the senior team with school staff and corporate staff across the district really did try to reflect that. We recognize that students are most vulnerable at times of transition, and so the ISS team, along with the early years, did do a totally new program in terms of the Welcoming to Kindergarten program. We did share that report with trustees prior to its implementation. The timing is interesting because this year we've told you that we're far above the projected enrollment, and in fact tonight you'll learn more about those numbers, but most of them are actually in the kindergarten and primary grades. So 1,100 students have arrived in kindergarten and the primary grades that we had not necessarily planned for. With many of those students coming for the first time to school, we are experiencing some challenges in transition and working very closely with schools in order to try to make it as smooth a transition for everyone as possible, but understanding as well that we've had to move quickly in terms of support. So we're really happy that we had revamped that Welcome to Kindergarten program last year. The timing was good. It was focused on individualized approach for all families, and we will continue that work. Likewise, by implementing inclusive grade 9 math, we see the transition to secondary school as a very important time in a child's life. And so we look to ensure that every student can experience a high school without first having to determine their course pathway. So they get to experience an inclusive grade 9, and then rather than defaulting into their program type, they can make an informed choice once they're in high school. There was significant work done over the course of last year, specifically around the grade 9 math curriculum, as well as preparing schools for the expansion of the inclusive grade 9 program. We very much want it to be an active decision amongst the family and the students in terms of their chosen pathway. We just saw a presentation now in terms of some of that work that was done last year in promoting specialist high skills majors as an example. We know also that the pedagogy used in the classroom will be tied directly to how successful students are, and so there was a focus last year on universal design for learning and assessment, and that focus will continue further this year. It will be an ongoing practice as we get better in terms of understanding the individual needs of learners. Staff have been examining the Right to Read report that came out last spring, and we did start to early on implement whole class structured literacy practices as a response. We did a pilot last year in several schools, and the preliminary data from that pilot did indicate that progress in reading and writing for all students, for those who required Tier 2 support and literacy, were found to make the greatest gains with that pilot. We then went on to implement that into the summer learning programs, and this year, building on the work we did last year in the pilots, we'll continue with interdepartmental focus in rolling out for all schools, understanding that needs are varied, but that the understanding of the structured reading program would be important for all educators. As part of our commitment to the Truth and Reconciliation, we've continued to expand the grade 11 Indigenous English course and are actively working with educators in all grades to ensure that Indigenous knowledge, contributions, and experiences, both current and historical, are part of what students learn about within our schools. And again, you've had many presentations over the course of last year about that work, and then again this evening. In terms of the success for inclusive grade 9, it was 93% last year, and that's the first time we've been able to report that number to you, so that is new information. We recognize that we have much more to do in terms of the students who were not yet successful in inclusive grade 9, and in particular that is focused on students who have special education needs and understanding how to differentiate more effectively for those students. That work will continue. In the report, we did provide some background information in terms of grade 9, understanding, however, that it's an entirely new curriculum and new program, and therefore a comparison between years isn't really possible. This is a new baseline that we're setting. We're seeing an increase in our graduation rates, and that is a provincial number that is provided to us from the Ministry of Education, and it was very positive in terms of the progress that we're making, and I think reflective of the re-engagement strategies that staff have implemented. So the progress of the four-year graduation rate from 2019 to 2021 increased by 3.5 points to a total of 85% graduation rate for 4 years. Everyone may recall that the 5-year choice is still something that many families and students wish to experience, and progress in the 5-year graduation rate increased by 2.6 points to a total of a 90% rate for students in the same time period. Other provincial data that is normally released in August and made available to the public in this time frame was delayed this year. EQAO data in particular, they've informed us that it will be forthcoming but not quite ready. So we are hopeful that we'll be able to report that in the director's annual report to the community in terms of EQAO, not just the achievement but also the very important qualitative data that we learn from the EQA surveys, and that alongside with local data informs us measuring the progress that we are making. Page 40, I wanted to highlight, given the conversations that trustees have had around our support of FSL educators. And so you'll see the number of initiatives that the team has undertaken to provide support to current FSL teachers in terms of networking opportunities, encouraging other educators to become FSL qualified, and also People and Culture doing extensive recruitment of hiring 31 full-time teachers over the summer months to assist in the programming for this year. The work also focused in terms of people and culture and our commitment to introducing new policies, not only to support student success, family belonging, but also to ensure that every staff member feels that they are welcomed and part of the Durham District School Board team and are respected. And so the People and Culture section does focus a lot on the professional learning that we have provided to educators, as well as the work that we're doing to be service-oriented, which included the renaming and refocusing of human resources into a People and Culture department. Generally speaking, the work that we are doing is really about wanting to make sure that every Durham District School Board graduate will have confidence in investigating the world beyond their immediate environment to better understand their community within a global economy, social and political systems and culture. That they'll recognize perspectives other than their own, articulating and explaining such perspectives thoughtfully and respectfully, that they will demonstrate fluency in communications that are geographical, linguistic, ideological, and that reflect cultural diversity, understanding the role of being a global citizen and the importance of taking action to improve the environment and living conditions locally and worldwide is what this work in all of our classrooms across the district is leading to. And that concludes the very brief overview, but as I say, the senior team is here and more than happy to take any specific questions that the report may have generated for you. Thank you, Chair.
Any questions? Seeing none, I just wanted to say a word about the CEL program, because this is my first year that I've been on there, and I am truly impressed, not only watching children and students that are in the program excel to a point of graduating. I was really impressed, and watching their enthusiasm and passing it on during the meeting. So thank you for the report, and I see no other questions, so we'll move on to staffing and enrollment update with Superintendent Heather Mundy.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Templeton. All primary class size requirements sent by the Ministry of Education were met on September 29th, 2022. The secondary class size requirements, which span both semesters, will be met during the second semester. The DDSB has seen a significant increase in enrollment over the official enrollment projections. An increase of 1,419 students at elementary, and as Director Marsh noted, over 500 in kindergarten and 600 in the primary grades. We also saw an increase of 202 students at the secondary panel as well. It is important to note that there was an increase of over 800 students between the end of August and September 29th. So as these enrollments increased throughout September, it was necessary to allocate additional FTE at many schools, which has caused reorganizations in many of our elementary schools to ensure that we met the ministry class size requirements. An additional 60 FTE elementary teachers and 20 dedicated early childhood educators were added into the elementary panel. An additional 9 secondary FTE was added to the secondary teaching panel to ensure that students had full timetables. With the additional allocations provided, we feel that we have set a positive course for students for the upcoming school year. Thank you.
Any questions? Trustee Lundquist?
Thank you, Chair Templeton, and through you, I have two kind of interrelated questions and perhaps a comment. So my questions are essentially, do we know why our numbers are so low? Like that, like, it seems odd to me that we're off by this, this size, like that's a whole school and, or two, you know, like it's not minor. And so I'm wondering if we have a sense of why that is, because if these are sort of similar trends in the future, we're going to have significant problems. But also because parents get upset when these kinds of things occur. And I understand some of it we can't plan for. But that leads to my second question, really, which is, when we're reorganizing classrooms, do we give appropriate notice to parents so that they can manage? Because this is like, we talk about the difficulty of transitions for kids, and then we put them through multiple transitions that are, you know, are potentially really challenging for them. So one of the things I've heard complained of is that this happened at Julie Payette, for example, and one of the big challenges there, that kids that were in a French classroom were suddenly being taught in English because they didn't have a French teacher, and they didn't understand, the parents didn't understand the urgency of moving that without having an appropriate teacher in place. And I'm hoping somebody can speak to that. Thank you.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. So in terms of the official enrollment projection, coming out of the last 2 years, obviously, you know, our enrollments was difficult to, you know, plan ahead. And I think that speaks to the influx we've seen in the kindergarten and early primary. Also the developments and all of that as well, because we do know that some of the closings certainly were different schedules than maybe perspective. So some of the things that we can look to, I think also looking at what we saw this year in terms of those projections, and also looking at, and there's still a fairly significant difference between our SK and grade 1 years. So important for us to analyze all that data as we consider the projections for next year. In terms of timelines, I agree. We absolutely would love to be able to give longer timelines for families and schools to manage any reorganization. What we found this fall is we had a moving target in terms of meeting our ministry requirements. So for example, even on one day, we went in the morning and checked enrollment, and by the afternoon it had jumped 25 students, which may not seem like a lot, but it impacts meeting those requirements in terms of our 90% of primary, 20 and under, and also our junior intermediate averages. And we do need to meet those targets by the end of September. So with that increasing enrollment, we were making additions every week with a goal that we had hoped to be a week ahead. And as it turned out, we were the last week adding them to make sure that we were on target. So I think lots of learning for us to do too, but I think it was the increases and the fluctuations that just occurred throughout September that impacted it, especially this year.
Supplementary?
No, it's not really supplementary. It's the question about Julie Payette. So, which is related, but it's essentially, if we don't have, I mean, if we had until the end of September, which would have been Friday, this would have been done at least a week before that. And I'm having a hard time understanding why we would move kids from French immersion out of a French classroom and have an English sub teaching them until we actually have a French teacher ready. Like, if we had the time to do that, why wouldn't we do that? And maybe I'm misconstruing something, but that's the information I have, and I'm happy to be corrected if I'm wrong about that.
I don't have the exact timelines for that school, but I think, you know, wherever we add a class, There's times that postings have to occur for someone to be hired, and so in the meantime, they are putting occasional teachers in to get the classes created and up and running. And obviously in a French immersion school, that piece around getting a French qualified in with the occasional may have been the impact at that point.
Trustee Edwards? Oh. Sorry.
Thank you. Trustee Lunk was somewhat asked one of the questions that I had around, was there any particular municipality or areas that had a higher increase? Because overall I see that it's, 1,400, over 1,400 students. Was there any, other than COVID maybe related and moving back into was there new development or any other impact that you could say is why we had such a large increase?
To be honest, I think we can go back and look more closely at the data now that we've, stabilized the staffing. I think that we noticed it throughout the district though. So to be able to say, one particular area, it was consistent throughout.
I just wanted to say that recognizing that organizational of classrooms happen every September, and this was an exception. Considering the amount of, I just want to say, at least from my perspective in my area, that I did see that staff are, responded as much as quickly as they could and so forth in trying to address the situation. So it's never an easy thing. It's always something when we go over changes for parents as far as, these changes, but I can honestly say that staff did fairly well considering the increase that we have, and I appreciate that.
Seeing no more questions, thank you for that report. And we'll now move on to the strategic planning procurement process with Executive Lead Robert Surjak.
Thank you, Chair Templeton. We're pleased to share this report with you on the next steps for the strategic planning procurement process with trustees. In 2020, trustees voted to extend the current Ignite Learning strategic plan until June 2023. For the DDSB to begin work on a new strategic plan in January 2023 and to provide enough time for a new plan to be developed by June. An RFP is required to retain the services of an external firm to assist in the development of the plan and facilitate engagement and consultation with trustees, DDSB community members, and partners. The draft RFP evaluation process and key experts from the RFP can be found in the appendices and cover Education Act requirements for the development of a multi-year strategic plan and include the board's commitment to Indigenous rights and human rights. Once an external firm is secured, a draft consultation plan would be shared with trustees for feedback and input prior to the start of engagement and consultation. We're happy to take any questions you have.
Trustee Donna Edwards.
Thank you for the report, but to be quite frankly, I'm a little perplexed why this is coming to Standing Committee as an information item. Because under the Education Act, the Board of Trustees' responsibility under 169.1F is that we develop the strategic plan. And I understand that there is a short timeline. However, over the years being involved with this board, 21 odd years, not all as a trustee, there are different methodologies in which a director decides to put out, and the RFP differs as well, because how the methodology of a strategic plan is carried out is very much decided upon by the director and the board of trustees. This, and I recognize that there's election coming up. We also have a director who is retiring. So timelines would be tight, but I feel very strongly that this RFP shouldn't go out. It should be under the direction of the new board of directors and the new director, because it's an opportunity And it's their plan that they are going to be doing for 4 years, and I recognize this is just the RFP, but it really is the opportunity of the new director and the new board to go ahead and define what the strategic direction, but how also to carry that out. So I really have a problem with this report as it is. Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Appreciate that feedback. And if this clarification helps, that will be good. And if not, then we'll change course. So most definitely the idea is that the new director and the new Board of Trustees will actually lead the consultation and the new strategic plan. The intent behind getting an RFP out currently and seeking your feedback on the criteria of the RFP was so that that part of the process could be done to position the new board and the new director in January to then determine what their consultation plan will be between January and June in time to launch their strategic plan, trustees' strategic plan in September. So the idea was to do some of the background work now to get ahead of it so that in January the board, along with the new director, could begin that process with a report coming forward from the consultants in terms of the consultation plan for approval by trustees. They would be approving that consultation plan, and it would be the new board doing that. So I don't know if that helps or not. Our idea was to try to provide assistance with the background work.
I do understand the explanation, and it's great that you want to provide the background work, but I still see that the director, how things, what the RFP may contain, or what the consultants would be chosen to do certain parts of it, even that is up to the board. And I have seen where the director of education has been very much involved in having staff involved with the consultation process, and then I've also seen it the other way where the consultant is very much involved. So it's very hard to put it into an RFP if that, without those individuals being discussed. And I know it's a tight time frame, but we ran into the same thing in one of the years too, as far as that was concerned. It's also an opportunity for the trustees and the directors to get to know each other, do that team building and really understanding, because one of the things that I really see missing in that RFP as well is just the extent of public consultation, how it's going to be, and you can't define that until people get together. So I understand the wanting to do that back work, but I don't think it's really possible.
Trustee Lundquist.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have the same concern because, I mean, although I have to admit, Trustee Edwards was a little bit convincing there, and so maybe I'm reflecting on what I was about to say. I viewed it as sort of procedural assistance to get the process started, with the trustees and the new director certainly able to redirect that process as they determine. So I didn't view it in quite the same way, but I do recognize the scope of public consultation and that kind of thing really will be kind of fundamental to the work of this. And if that is something that is not amenable to change later on, then perhaps it is something that needs to just sit until a new board is elected. Thank you.
One thing, Chair, I neglected to say is part of the RFP commitment was actually to agree upon an hourly rate so that it wasn't they were quoting on the complete project, understanding that the hourly rate may vary depending on those preliminary meetings between the Board of Trustees and the director in January.
Seeing no more questions, we will move on to the ops report through Trustee Donna Edwards.
Thank you. Trustee Thatcher and myself attended the Ontario Public School Board Board of Directors meeting on Friday and Saturday of last week. We discussed, I'm just going to go through this again, legislative updates, including in that update was also the fact that OPSPA is going to be running has an advocacy day that is planned. I think I said the wrong date before, but it's November 28th. That day is used for OPSPA and the members, basically trustees, to provide the government and the opposition parties to increase their awareness of OPSPA priorities and what the association is all about, because many times we do have to explain what OPSPA does and sometimes what trustees do. We also had a report from the Indigenous Trustees Council of OPSPA, and this is the first time under the bylaws as well that our Indigenous Trustee Council has a representative on the executive OPSPA, which was widely one of our initiatives to ensure that we have equity, diversity, inclusion within OPSPA and its bylaws. We had an education finance update, a summary of all the BNSB memos. The Ontario Coalition of Children and Youth Mental Health is in its 13th year of operation. This coalition is basically has been using its expertise in evidence-based research to create a position paper of recommendations around transitioning from COVID-19 school experience document, as well as we've talked about the French as a second language labor market knowledge mobilization agreement that we've had, and several market partnerships with the ministry have been developed, basically looking at culminating some of the research that has been done by that group and presenting it to conferences in Ontario for this school year. OPSPA website also has a repository of exemplary practices for boards, and they've been putting them together, and they're available for trustees to use. As well as OPSPA as well as having a strategic planning process as well, develop its next key works. And that is my report. Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you for your report, Trustee Edwards. And we'll move on to information item E. Notice of motion brought forward by Trustee Lundquist.
Thank you, Chair Templeton. I had asked to add this item to the agenda because I think it's something that we need to have a discussion about at the board. And so I did provide a copy of it to Executive Lead Sarangic, so it could be placed up on the screen. Essentially, I'm hoping to move the following motion so that we can have a discussion about it at the board. So I'm not moving the motion, I'm moving to have a notice of motion on the approved so that we can then move it to the board. So it will essentially read, I move that trustees be provided with a report on an urgent basis that addresses trends in violent incidents, outline strategies adopted to address the incidents, and assess whether the interventions are effective. That the report speaks to the impact of violent incidents on the victims, the child engaged in violent behavior, and those witnessing the violence. And that the report must include details on the procedures employed when incidents occur, including but not limited to the sharing of information with parents and guardians when their child is directly involved or a witness to any serious violent incidents or assault. Finally, that the report include an assessment of whether the board has adopted a trauma-informed approach to violent incidents as they impact students and staff, and whether improvements need to be made in any or all of these areas. And procedurally, I'm kind of in your hands, Chair Templeton, about how we manage this. I have a lot to say about the topic. I don't think that it necessarily needs to be said this evening. I'm happy to address it at the board meeting, and really, I guess I'm just seeking to have this approved so we can put it on the agenda of board.
Councillor Cotter will address.
Sure. Thanks, Chair Templeton. So, I mean, there's two ways to proceed. If the Trustee Lundquist wants to have the motion, debated and addressed tonight, that can be done. It wouldn't be a notice of motion. It would just be a motion passed by the standing committee that then only becomes effective once the actions are approved by the board in 2 weeks. So that would sort of be the standard course. If you wanted, you could just bring it here for information and then have the debate and actually move the motion at the board. So either one would be acceptable. So I think it depends which way you want to proceed.
I think I would prefer to proceed the second way, Chair Templeton, and I say that because I sprung this on people. I don't think they're prepared to debate or discuss it, and I think it is a topic of extreme importance that requires thoughtful consideration. So I would prefer to take it down path 2.
Thank you, Trustee Lundquist. I believe that's the course we're going to go, but Patrick Cotter again, please.
Yeah, so Chair Templeton, so I think that's fine. It is brought here for information. I don't think in that situation it would be appropriate to debate the matter. The motion, there's no motion on the floor. It's just brought for information. I think if that's the way you were leaning, Trustee Lundquist. So I think I would recommend you just move on to the next item then.
All right, thank you. I'm looking, there are no committee reports. There is some correspondence at the end from Avon Maitland District School Board and Blue Water District School Board. We have no other business, so I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Trustee Edwards, seconded by Trustee Lundquist. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome to the Governance and Policy Committee meeting of Monday, October 3rd. We will call the meeting to order and start with the land acknowledgement. The Durham District School Board acknowledges that many Indigenous nations have longstanding relationships, both historic and modern, with the territories upon which our school board and schools are located. Today, this area is home to many Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. We acknowledge that the Durham region forms a part of the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, the Mississauga peoples, and the treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation. It is on these ancestral lands that we teach, learn, and live. Trustees, do we have any declarations of interest? We see none. That will take us to number 4 on the agenda, a motion to approve. Can I have a motion, please? Trustee Byrd, thank you. Thank you, Trustee Forbes. That takes us to item 5, which are the minutes. There are draft minutes of the Governance and Policy Committee meeting of June 13th, 2022. Can I ask anyone if they have any additions or amendments that need to be made to those minutes? Seeing none, that takes us to the next item. We need to elect a chairperson, and sorry, I have a document related to that and I just need to pull it up. So we will proceed with election of the chair for the Governance and Policy Committee. I think it would probably be appropriate for me to turn this over to Robert Sarangic until the chair is elected, at which time the chair will actually take over the role of presiding officer. So over to you, Rob, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Trustee Lundquist. We'll be taking nominations for the position of chair. I'll be asking for nominations, but before doing so, I'd just like to note the following. When 2 or more trustees are nominated and agree to stand, each would be given an opportunity to speak to their candidacy, and then voting shall begin in accordance with Robert's Rules of Order. It would be a vote through a show of hands here at the meeting. I'm now pleased to open nominations for the position of chair of the Governance and Policy Committee. If there are any, please raise your hand. I see Trustee Lundquist. I assume you're self-nominating?
Yeah, I will self-nominate just because I think that might be easiest, to be honest.
We'll do a... So that's moved by Trustee Lundquist, that Trustee Lundquist be nominated for the position of Chair of the Governance and Policy Committee. She's accepted that nomination. We will repeat, are there any further nominations for Chair of the Committee? I'll read that a third time. If there are any further nominations. Seeing none, we'll declare nominations closed and congratulate Trustee Lundquist as Chair of the Governance and Policy Committee for the remainder of the term. And back to you.
Thank you. I'll do my very best for the next 6 weeks. But what that does is it actually moves us into another election. So we actually need to have a vice chair for the Governance and Policy Committee. And I will follow the exact same process. So I will open the nominations for the position of vice chair of the Governance and Policy Committee.
I'll self-nominate.
Thank you, Trustee Templeton. Do we have any other nominations for that role? Okay, so Trustee Templeton has moved that he accept the, or that he nominates himself for the role of vice chair of the committee. I don't see any further nominations. Are there any further nominations? Okay, I'm going to ask for a third time. If there are no further nominations, we will declare nominations closed. So thank you for stepping forward, Trustee Templeton. You are now the vice chair of this committee. I'm just going to return to the agenda and we will move to item 6B, which is a report on the Parent Involvement Committee and School Community Council policy. And we'll go to Superintendent Margaret Lazarus, please.
Good evening, and through you, Chair Lundquist. The purpose of the report is to provide the Governance and Policy Committee with the School Community Council policy and the Parent Involvement Committee policy. The Ontario Ministry of Education, Ontario Regulation 612.00 for school community councils and parent involvement committees, mandates that all school boards establish and maintain a school community council at all schools and a parent involvement committee at the district level. Just a couple of things I'd like for us to note. We revoked the former parent involvement regulation and the school community council regulation following the mandated phase out of regulations. We consolidated the former parent involvement committee and the school community council policy into one. In this way, the consolidated policy now mirrors the format of Regulation 612.00. We've also included in the package, for your information, the procedure for the Parent Involvement Committee, the School Community Council, and the DDSB School Community Council Handbook, which will be revised by the Parent Involvement Committee this year. The School Community Council procedures outlines the roles and responsibilities of the Council, as well as its structure, composition, and meeting format and frequency. The Parent Involvement Committee procedure outlines the composition and structure and processes relating to the frequency, format of the meetings, and other administrative items for the committee members. So this is my report, and I welcome any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Superintendent Lazarus. Any comments or questions from trustees?
She can't see me.
Trustee Donna Edwards.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Donna, because I can't see you, so please go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can't see me in here. It's very difficult to understand. It's more on a general comment, and it's particularly around school councils, but because under that regulation, the purpose of the school council is through active participation of parents to improve pupil achievement and to enhance the accountability of the education system to parents. And so my question has been, and I apologize, I was going to send my notes and then they're on my laptop and not here. And I had OPSPA and a whole bunch of things. So, but it was more on it to ensure that some of the, especially around some of the procedure, or even to identify the accountability that is done as far as to the parents, enhance the accountability of the education to parents. The accountability is where I'm finding difficult. It's not quite addressed in the school council portion of it. And as I said, I apologize, I don't have my actual notes here with me.
You don't need to apologize. I think your comments were clear, and we'll go to, I presume, to Superintendent Lazarus, but of course, if somebody wants to direct otherwise, I'm happy to go elsewhere.
Just for clarification, you'd like us to enhance the accountability that the SECs have towards the parent community. Just for clarity, is that what you're requesting? Because we can surely add that to the policy.
Trustee Edwards, is that reflective of the concern you raised? It sounds like it is to me, but I just want to be certain.
That would be great. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, thank you for your comments. Do we have any other questions or comments about this policy as it is? I see none, so thank you very much, Superintendent Lazarus. We appreciate you coming to governance and sharing this with us. That will take us to item 6C on the recommended actions.
Excuse me?
Sorry.
I beg your pardon. I apologize for interrupting. I'm wondering if we could just receive a wee bit of direction in terms of timing. If trustees were willing, whether or not we could make that adjustment and provide the policy to notice of motion for the October board, if governance could move that, and then we could bring that draft to October board, and then it could be approved potentially then at the November special board meeting if that was agreeable to the committee, but it would require a vote.
Okay, I don't anticipate that's going to be an issue, so If someone, I don't know if a trustee has a suggested wording for that, or if Director Marsh or Executive Lead Sarangic want to suggest some language, then I'm sure that somebody would be pleased to move that motion. I mean, I could try, but it's going to be bad. So
just for clarification on this, Trustee Edwards, in reviewing the policy, I think the primary reasoning behind the policy is just to establish it in accordance with Ontario regulation. Was your thinking more policy related or potentially procedural related? If so, then we'd, if it's procedural related, be able to move forward with the policy as is and make adjustments to the procedure and take that into consideration. So happy to take that offline as well if you'd like.
It was actually a line that was going to be added to the policy,
Okay.
but that's fine. But there are some on the procedure side. It's just to ensure that the accountability actions are also identified in the procedure as well. And I understand that's under staff purview. So it's just really a minor change that Superintendent Lazarus mentioned. So having a notice of motion to approve approve the policy with minor amendment around public accountability to parents is fine with me, something to that effect.
okay, so then I assume you're okay with moving that then, Trustee Edwards. So it would be essentially that Trustee Edwards, and if I'm wrong, please correct me, moves that the policy be adopted as a notice of motion, be adopted. I am sorry, I knew this was going to happen if I tried to actually form a thought. Trustee Forbes, do you want to take a crack at it? I feel like she's got an idea, so let's go to Trustee Forbes.
I think that we're providing a notice of motion for the next board meeting to review the amended policy on the consolidated parent involvement committee and school community councils policy.
Okay, I feel like that does it. So can we move that forward? Do we have a second on that? Are you okay with that, Trustee Edwards? Sorry, I shouldn't call on you like that. It could be anybody and I can't actually see you, so.
Yeah, I know, I was just, yes.
Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder, so all in favor? Any opposed? I see none, so that is carried and it will come before us in October. So then I actually will move on to item 6C of the agenda, which is the supervisory officer recruitment policy. And for that, we'll go to either General Counsel Patrick Cotter or to Director Nora Marsh, please.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Templeton. So the report can be found at page 100 of the package. As set out in the report, we are proposing a new policy on the supervisory officer recruitment that would replace the old policy and regulation. The crux of the policy is to adopt and implement the equitable recruitment framework that's set out in the policy and procedure, so that framework would apply to the recruitment of superintendents for the Durham District School Board. And of note for your consideration is the governance point that's highlighted in the report, that members of the Board of Trustees would be removed from the hiring panel, which would be constituted under the of staff under the equitable recruitment policy and procedure. So subject to any questions you may have, that is our report, and the draft policy is included in the package starting at page 103 and 104. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cotter. Do we have any comments or questions about this this new policy or the revised policy? Okay, I don't see any. So are we going to move that as a notice of motion then as well to the next meeting? I assume that's what you would like us to do. Is that correct?
That is correct. If it's acceptable to the committee, yes, that's what we would recommend.
Okay, and do we need to vote or can we just agree that?
Well, I think if you're satisfied as the chair that no one objects, that's as good as a vote.
Does anyone, let me ask this. Okay, so I see that Trustee Forbes has her hand up, so let's go there. And let's just go there first.
No objection. This makes total sense to me, so I would be happy to move this as a notice of motion.
Okay, so since we haven't moved, can we just have a second? We'll vote and it'll be done, and that'll be that, and it'll. Is anyone prepared to second that? Thank you, Trustee Bird. Anyone in favor, please raise your hand or indicate that in some way. That is approved, so that will move forward then as well. Thank you. I believe that takes us to other business, and we have none. So that being said, I thank you for your patience in sticking it out through 3 meetings this evening, and I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. That being said, this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, all.
Good night.